keeping a character consistent can be tricky with AI image generation. I've been experimenting with Nano Banana, specifically focusing on consistent characters, not the 75 other use cases for Nano Banana, and in this video I want to show you what I've done with a couple of characters, and then we'll make some edits to another one together so you can see where things are and how it goes as it happens. Nano Banana, aka Gemini 2.5 Flash, is available everywhere, all the platforms, and you can even use it on Gemini for free, but if you use it on Gemini, the images do come out with a watermark. This video is sponsored by OpenArt, which is where I'm using Nano Banana. OpenArt has the latest image and video models, along with tons of tools and features, making it really convenient to create the starting image of your character and then push the edits and creativity as far as you want. Now let me introduce Beatrice, our first character, from this starting image, which I generated on OpenArt. I told the banana I wanted her sitting at her desk. The exact prompt I used is right here in the blue box. The consistency is great. There's no doubt that's Beatrice, and she's talking on the phone at a desk in an office. Using the same starting image of Beatrice, the next thing on her calendar was running this meeting. I didn't like the way it kept her arms crossed in the new image like they were in the original, so I used this conference room image as my reference and told it to have her gesture with her hands. I feel kind of bad because she was just mean mugging this guy on the right, and now it looks like she's really giving him the business. As far as the consistency goes, that's Beatrice. I used the original starting image again and put her in the back of a taxi looking at her phone, and a couple of notes here. One, since her arms are folded there in the original image, it wants to keep them that way in the edits unless I tell it to do something different with her arms and hands, or give her something to do that requires her hands and arms to not be crossed. Two, since we used the New York City high-rise office city view theme in the office image, I carried it through in this edit, making it a New York City taxi. Still using the original reference image, we got B here at dinner with a friend. I noticed that her arms are folded in front of her. That pose from the original image is coming through, but it did rotate her around, so instead of her left side, what the original image showed, we're now seeing her right side that didn't exist in the original image, and the banana did a great job of figuring out what it should look like. Now back to the issue of the folded arms and neither of them eating. I used this restaurant image as the reference and described the woman on the left cutting her food with a knife and fork and the woman on the right taking a bite. And that's exactly what we got. I like that it has her looking down a bit at the food she's cutting so she can see what she's working on. The only thing I noticed is that the utensils all still seem to be in their original spots on the table, so I guess these are extra forks and knives. But hey, it's a fancy joint, so maybe they have 4 different forks and spoons at each setting. Please bear with me, my voice is breaking up. I don't know what's going on. I don't think I've done that much yelling lately, but it's going in and out, so I'm sorry and I appreciate your patience. Using the original image again as the reference, Beatrice is headed home with her doggy bag next to her. I'm not sure how she had anything left over from that tiny meal that was on her plate, but maybe she ordered more to go. It gave us a different perspective of her character while keeping her consistent, and no issues with folded arms this time, probably because her hands and forearms are out of the frame, but it works. For the next point in Beatrice's day, I gave the banana the original starting image and the image we just created of her in the cab with the brown bag, and it combined the bag that was only in the one image with Beatrice, who was in both, and here she is arriving home to her apartment. The door looks like it's already open, so the key in there's confusing. If it's already open and she's taking the key out, I'd expect her other hand to be on the doorknob, but then again, I told it one hand holding the bag and the other unlocking the door, so maybe that's on me. Next, we've got Beatrice in some sweats chilling on the sofa with her dog, and as soon as I clicked the go button for this one, I thought, man, I should have done something different with her hair now that she's home and getting comfy. And then I saw in the edited image it had put her hair up, even though I forgot to ask. Maybe it was reading my mind. I've got to unplug that Alexa. Now it's definitely nighttime, so we need to turn down the sun. I tried just saying it's dark outside, but that only made a little difference out the window, and it also dimmed things a bit inside, which I wasn't really looking for. So I remembered a little trick about referring to the view through the window and said, the view through the window is nighttime, city lights, and it worked, despite my terrible wording. Then I spotted this coffee mug it put on the table and thought she might like to have some of whatever's in there. Now based on what happened at the restaurant with the knife and fork still being on the table, even though she was using the knife and fork, I didn't want to end up with an entirely different coffee mug in her hand and still have the one on the table. So I said she's taking a sip of coffee from the coffee cup that's sitting on the table in front of her. And that worked out great. She's sipping from the mug, it's not on the table anymore, and it really looks like it's the same mug. Now there was one part of Beatrice's day that did not work out so well. Using the original image as the reference, I wanted to have her pick up her dry cleaning earlier in the day, but it just dropped her in there with the same pose as the original, so she looks like a cardboard cutout. I wanted wanted to eliminate the angle of the original pose, and I realized I needed to give her hands something to do so her arms wouldn't default to being crossed, so I said she was squarely facing the camera and paying for her cleaning. That fixed those issues, but it looks like she's behind the counter, and there's another counter behind her, and this whole place looks weird. Maybe walking into the cleaners would work out better. Nope, that's not how doors work. They don't pivot from the center, and she's not even using the handle. Plus, this doesn't look like the midtown sort of scene like the other shots. So I tried just saying she's walking into a dry cleaners in NYC, and that turned out horrible. She's basically in the original pose, again looking like a cardboard cutout. The text above the door is a nice touch and spelled correctly, but it should be backward from inside the store. We won't even try to figure out the traffic pattern outside, and the employees seem to be preparing food on the counter at the dry cleaners. One last attempt at this, and it didn't turn out well at all. When I didn't have her doing something with her hands like paying, it defaulted back to that original pose, and I thought it might have her opening the door or something, but it just didn't. Again, the banana made up a sign with a name that sounds legit and accurate text, but if we're inside the store, it's kind of hard to tell here, then this sign should be facing outside. We're going to let Beatrice rest and meet our next character, Julian. Now, after dealing with Beatrice's folded arms posing issue, I was afraid this notebook of Julian's would show up all the time, so the first thing I did is get rid of that. No problem, notebook gone, looks good. With the Julian sans notebook image as our reference, we've got him at the breakfast table, even though it looks like I left some words off the beginning of this prompt. Way to go, Banana, for knowing what I was thinking. Maybe I should be unplugging the mic when I'm not recording. Anyway, this looks like Julian to me. It changed the lighting in a way that fits the scene, and his eyes look a little bigger, which maybe that's because he's inside now and not out in the sun, or maybe I've been in the sun too much and I'm seeing things. Using the same starting image, I just said he's driving in traffic. At first I was bummed that this didn't look like a photo taken from the passenger seat or from just inside the windshield, but the more I looked at it, the more I liked what it did here. No complaints on the character, that's Julian, and hey, the traffic's even going the right direction, at least as far as I'm concerned. Somewhere I saw prompting that referred to a character by name, and what better place to try that than this image where I wanted him to have a name tag. The banana put it together based on me saying Julian is at work as a cashier, and so on the name tag I asked for, it put Julian and cashier without me having to say a name tag with the text and then spelling out or putting in quotes Julian or whatever. After work, Julian and a friend are pumped up for a concert. Going from the image of them outside the venue, I had it put them inside the concert. Julian must be really happy. He's still smiling and giving the thumbs up. But AI models love to turn people around the wrong way at a concert. So from this image, I asked it to turn them around. And it turned them around, but Julian is still giving us the thumbs up. Apparently I should have prompted it to do something different because once he did thumbs up once, it didn't want to stop. Now a little note here, I wanted to try and get this shot from in front of the guys, so the camera has its back to the stage, capturing the guys' faces, and all the people behind them would be facing the camera and the stage. But if I use this image of the back of these guys and get it to show me their faces, it wouldn't be Julian's face or the face of his friend if I'm only using this back of the head's perspective as the reference. That might seem dumb and obvious to you. I'm only sharing it because my dumbass tried it and wondered why it didn't look like my characters anymore. After the concert, and at least one bad decision that'll just have to be a mystery for us, the guys found themselves with time on their hands and some new bracelets. Here's the progression from the original image of Julian to the one where we got rid of the notebook, which we used to generate the one of him outside the venue with his friend, which we used to generate the one of him in handcuffs. It's definitely a different facial expression in the last image, which is expected, but something about his mouth looks different, and I think it might be more than just the expression and the different lighting. If that was an issue, I could go back through these and try including more detailed descriptions of the character in the prompt, and maybe remind it to maintain the facial characteristics. Maybe that'd make a difference. What didn't work with Julian is something that hasn't worked well for me with any character or subject that I've tried with Nano Banana, and that's getting it to move the camera to one side or the other and not move the subject. Here I wanted to move camera left, showing Julian's right side. It turned Julian, but didn't move the camera. I tried a long prompt. I read somewhere that including all this detail would help it get things right, but it didn't. It moved Julian, not the camera. Another stupidly long prompt. That turned Julian more, but didn't move the camera. A shorter but differently worded attempt. turns Julian toward the wall but didn't move the camera, and a whole different way of wording it, still didn't move the camera, but it turned Julian. So the banana has no problem showing us what the other side of a subject, object, or scene looks like, but it wants to rotate the subject to show us another angle. It doesn't want to move the camera laterally into a different position to show us that perspective. And I say laterally on purpose because it usually listens if you ask it for high angle, low angle, or top down shot. It'll move the camera up or down. It just doesn't like moving it laterally or arcing. If you found a trick for moving the camera laterally or getting it to arc to a different perspective on a subject without moving the subject and it works consistently, please share it in the comments. Now let's work with Lorenzo and see what we can do with him. On OpenArt, we can use Nano Banana in chat to edit. Just make sure you have Nano Banana selected up here in the dropdown. Or you can use it from the image creation page. Just click image here on the menu on the home page, and then make sure Nano Banana is the selected model. We'll use both, but let's start with chat to edit. First, we need an image to work with. We can either upload that or select it from something we've created here on OpenArt. I'm going to drag in my image. He's showing up in the preview window, and this image is also down here in the image rail underneath it. Over here on the left is where we'll be telling Nano Banana what we want to change. First, I'm going to say create a photo of this man cheerfully arranging a bouquet in a florist shop wearing a yellow apron over his black t-shirt, remove the blazer. And that edit has a few things packed in there. We wanted a scene change, put Lorenzo someplace different than he was. We wanted several clothing changes, like remove the blazer and add this yellow apron. And we wanted to keep the black t-shirt there the same. Of course, the main thing we wanted to keep the same was Lorenzo, and I'd say that looks like Lorenzo. Let's try this again, but this time we'll give it the image of Lorenzo, the image of the inside of a flower shop, and the image of the flower arrangement we want him to be working on. So over here in the image rail, it selected the image we just generated, which is fine if we wanted to make edits based on this image, but since we're going to recreate this image, we want to go back and start fresh with the original Lorenzo. Then to get our other images in here, we'll just drag in this image of the flower shop, and then we'll drag in this image of the flower arrangement. We're going to change up the prompt a little bit so that we can reference these different images that we're combining here. I said create a photo of the man from the image, and there's only one image with a man in it, so hopefully you can figure that out. Cheerfully putting together the flower arrangement with the blue carnations and ferns from the other image. Since there's flowers and flower arrangements in both images, I wanted to be specific so it could figure out which one I'm talking about. Then it goes on in the florist shop shown in the remaining image. I'm hoping by process of elimination, it'll be able to figure out what I'm talking about. Then I said change the man's outfit so he's wearing a yellow apron over his black t-shirt, remove the blazer. Let's hit the go button. And how did we do here? Well, starting with the florist shop, the most obvious thing is it cleared off the table. I guess it needed to do that to make room for the flower arrangement that we wanted him to be working on. But aside from that, it looks like it kept everything the same. Even the stuff on the other end of the table remains unchanged. Now, as far as the flower arrangement, I was envisioning something a little bit further along, more than him having a few blue carnations in his hand and some laying on the table, along with some wilted fern pieces. But you could argue that this is the beginning of that flower arrangement, and the other pieces just haven't been brought to the table yet. We could also tweak the prompt a little bit and try saying something like he's putting the finishing touches on the arrangement, or something to make it come out a little bit more complete, but I'm not worried about it. As far as Lorenzo goes, that looks like him to me. It put him in the yellow apron like we asked for, got rid of the blazer like we asked for, he still got the black t-shirt which we asked for. Lorenzo has a lot more stuff to do today, so let's go back and select our original image of him, because we don't want to keep making edits on edits on edits. We want to go back to this source image here, drop in a new prompt, hit the go button, and this time we want him in a back room counting money with some cash neatly stacked on a table and a counting machine along with a handwritten ledger. Alright, we got the back room, the table, the cash, the counting machine, the ledger, and that looks like Lorenzo. We're going to move on to the next thing on Lorenzo's agenda. Now, if I needed other things from this image to be in the next one that I'm going to create, like if it was supposed to take place in this room, or if I wanted to take him and this table and whatnot and put it in a different setting, then it would make sense to edit from this image. But the only thing I need for the next scene is Lorenzo, so I'm going to go back to the original Lorenzo image. Over here in the prompt box, I'm looking for security camera footage. I'll go ahead and click the go button. We can read it while it's loading and showing up. Security camera captures this man from above in an alley midday, handing another man a thick envelope stuffed full. The digital time and date on the image include, and I've got specific text there to include. Let's see, we're in an alley. That looks like Lorenzo. He's handing an envelope to some other dude. It's got the camera perspective up a little bit. It did the thing with the corners like a vignette or whatever, I guess trying to sell the security camera vibe, and then the text down in the bottom right corner, that looks like exactly the text that I asked it to put on there somewhere. I'm not sure the envelope is stuffed full, and I don't really know why they each have both hands on it, but if it really bothered me, I could re-roll and see if we got something different. In fact, let's do that. We'll go ahead and copy this prompt. We'll come back to the image rail, select our original image of Lorenzo, and then paste in the prompt, hit the go button. Okay, in this version, the envelope is stuffed a lot more full. In fact, it looks like it's busted open, or maybe it was never sealed. The guy getting the envelope's only using one hand. Lorenzo's still using two, but that's a fairly minor detail. This image, like the last one, we're in an alley, it's an elevated perspective, it got the text right, and that looks like Lorenzo. Now that Lorenzo's been in two different alleys, given two different guys two different envelopes, he needs to move on and do something different. So let's go back and select our original Lorenzo image, drop our prompt in the prompt box, click the go button, and for that prompt I said create a close-up snapshot of this man giving a TED Talk taken from the side. Well, it definitely looks like he's giving a TED Talk, it's Lorenzo, and it gave us the side profile view that we asked for. However, this mic headset thing that he's got going on looks really weird. Not only the odd configuration on the side of his head that we can see, but you can also see apparently a second microphone coming around the other side of his face. Now in the olden days, like a couple of months ago, you'd probably take this image and go do some inpainting or some erasing, removing, something like that, or take it into a photo editor and work that out. But instead of doing all that, let's just give it another shot. We'll come back and select our original Lorenzo image, drop that same prompt in again, click the go button, and the microphone situation is much better. Now I guess we have to assume though that there's some audience over here to the left that he's facing and talking to. I kind of feel like he should have his back to the TED wall and be facing out from there, and if I needed it to be that way in this image, I could just try re-rolling, or I could add some details to the prompt about where I want him and the audience and all that and how they relate. But I'm ready to take Lorenzo to his next scene. So far we've been using Nano Banana in chat to edit on OpenArt. We're going to switch up now and use it on the Create Image page. From here it's this top menu item Create Image, or from the home page just click Image over here on the left menu. Right now Nano Banana is the default model. If there's something else in this spot, just click anywhere here to switch the model. OpenArt has a lot of great image generation models to choose from, including Flux Context Pro, Flux Context Max, GPT Image 1, OpenArt's new photorealistic model, Ideogram V3, and one of my recent favorites, Imagine 4. We want Nano Banana, so I'll just click it to keep it selected and come back into the image creation page. And here on this page, we use the prompt box to tell the banana what we want edited. I'm going to say put this man in a red Adidas tracksuit running on a treadmill in a gym. In here you also have the option for OpenArt's Auto Enhance. If we leave that on, it'll add a bunch of detail to this prompt after we hit the create button before it generates the image. If you want to see the enhanced prompt and be able to make changes to it before you hit the go button, toggle off the Auto Enhance, hit the drop down, and select this Quick Enhance option. That'll turn your prompt into a big detailed prompt right here in the prompt box, and you can make any changes you want before you hit go and create images. We'll leave the enhancements off and stick with our simple prompt. Right below that is image guidance. That's where we're going to provide our image of Lorenzo, because up here we said put this man. Well, what man? We've got to give it a man. If this happens to be collapsed, just click anywhere up here by image guidance and drop it down. If you click anywhere in this area, you can choose to upload your image, select it from something you've generated on OpenArt, or use one of your OpenArt characters. If you've created a character on OpenArt, I'm just going to drag in and drop our image of Lorenzo there, same image that we were using in chat to edit. For output size, I want 16 by 9. I think the default here is auto, which will use the size of the reference image that you provided. The only thing under advanced settings is an option to automatically upscale the images as they generate. I prefer to wait and only upscale the images that I know I'm going to keep. Using Nano Banana here in the image creation page, you can decide how many images you want it to create, so how many variations whenever you type a prompt and hit the go button, how many versions do you want. We'll leave that on too, and the only thing left to do now is click the create button. Okay, let's look at the first one. I think that's Lorenzo. He's in a red Adidas tracksuit, and he's on a treadmill in a gym. Our second version gives us a slightly different pose, a little different facial expression, still looks like Lorenzo in a red Adidas tracksuit. Now the Adidas text isn't exactly legible. I'm kind of surprised by that because the banana's been doing really good with incorporating legible text. But I think it kept our character consistent and incorporated everything else that we asked for in this image. Let's try to put a few of our characters together. We've got our image of Lorenzo in there already. Let's drag in the image of Beatrice. In the prompt, I'm going to say the man from the first image and the woman from the second image are enjoying a quick lunch at a hot dog cart near Central Park. We'll leave the other settings at their defaults and hit create. 2 variations of that are ready. Let's take a look at the first one here. Let's see, that looks like Lorenzo and Beatrice, right down to the earring in Beatrice's ear. Looks like they're at a hot dog dog cart near the park. I'm not sure about these two blobs here inside the hot dog cart, but other than that, looking pretty good. Over to the second variation, Lorenzo and Beatrice are looking good. I think there might be a slight difference in her white shirt there compared to what we provided, but it's pretty minor. Otherwise, we're at a hot dog cart, and it looks like we're near the park. Now, some of this text that the AI came up with, like classic New York hot dogs, both legible and fits the context of the scene. And then some of the text is either gibberish or just a little messed up. But overall, it did pretty good with this image. So on openart, you can use Nano Banana both in chat to edit and in the image create page for creating or editing. openart has all my favorite image generation models. Again, I used openart to create all these starting images of the characters. You can turn any of your images into videos without even leaving openart, and you've got lots of video models to choose from. In addition to Nano Banana for editing images, you've got openart's editor where you can in-paint, remove, expand, do all kinds of things to your images here with these AI tools. openart also has a characters feature where you can create a consistent character and then use that over and over again to generate images. You can create a character with as little as one starting image, although more high quality images tends to improve the results of your generations when using your character. Now with Nano Banana, it's become so much easier to take a single image of a character and get images of that same character from different angles, wearing different outfits and in different scenes, and then use that to train a character. Now of course, as we've just seen, there's a lot you can do keeping your character consistent and creating images with that same character just using Nano Banana without having to create a character. It's great to have different tools and multiple ways to achieve the results that you're looking for. Other things you'll find on openart include their story feature where you can create a short character vlog, music video, or explainer video, and openart now has an audio section powered by 11 Labs for text-to-speech. And that might come in handy if you want to use openart's new AI lip sync tool where you can choose from 3 different models to create an AI lip sync video from just an image and the audio. And if you want to create a lip sync from a starting video, openart has Kling's lip sync built in. I'll be making a video soon test driving openart's AI lip sync with all the different models, but I thought I'd tell you about it now in case you want to get in and check it out. If you want to check out openart, there's a link in the description. My name is Bob, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining, and I hope you'll come back and join me for another video.